Dead zoom. Up. Keep going. Downwards. Straight in. Further behind. There we go. Up. Up a little bit. And he's behind that bush. Okay, a little bit to the left. There. Hopping around there. Standing by. Copy that, so I'm going to stand by here. Hopefully they should make noise again shortly. Between Leadwood, Mumba and Drakensberger. Come on, leopards. You've been keeping time, Romeo.
Negative. Once every 15 minutes. I think it's been about 10.
No. Come on, leopards. Make some noise. See it?
Yeah.
The garden orb. There's a garden orb spider next to us there. And you see the zigzag beneath it. It's called a stabellum. And they do that so birds and things can see their web and don't fly through and damage it. This is related, same family as the golden orb, but it's a slightly different species. You see the edges of the spider are quite angular, called a garden orb. Just let me know when you want me to do the link. Let me cross that bridge when we get to it. Okay, now we should be around the right time. Fortunately, this is quite one of the biggest and thickest blocks they happen to be in. Come on, leopards. Copy. Of course the leopards don't want to keep to the 15-minute schedule just to confuse us. But don't worry, not going anywhere. The station just had audio of those Ingwe again. They are now further to the north from where I last thought. I'm going to follow up on Mamba. Forbes, I'm in the block between Mamba and Leadwood. They sound much closer to Mamba right now. I'd say probably about halfway down Mamba. Halfway down Mamba, but to the south of the road. Okay, copy. Yeah, next we had audio of those. The mates here again. Unfortunately, they sound like they're moving a bit further north from where I last heard them, so I'm going to try and move around into the next area. So guys, while Romeo and I tried to make our way around to find those leopards, we went across to Scott quickly and see what he's up to. It's going to take me a little while to get out of this block and see where I last think the leopards. I heard them. Unfortunately, when they are mating, they do move. So over to Scott, and hopefully when we come back, we'll have a pair of fornicating felines.
Well, this is never a good sign. When the hood of the vehicle is up, it means there's a problem. And on our way to go and help Brent follow up on this mating pair of leopard, this vehicle decided to stop working. So we're now stuck. But thankfully, it just disappeared, but I'm sure they're going to pop out again shortly. Oh, they've just come further down the tree, yeah. But there are some tree squirrels, and they've just woken up. They've had a slow start to the morning, and we've just seen them emerge from a cavity in this tree where they sleep. And now it's time to go and look for some food. So they've had a Sunday morning sleep-in, and they're only getting active now. I wonder what this one is waiting for. It's clearly stuck in an interesting position, and maybe it's just nervous of coming down onto the ground away from the safety of the tree, and it's just making sure it doesn't make any wrong moves. Now, I hope Brent does get lucky with these mating leopards, but he's in a very, very tricky area, as I'm sure you would have seen. It's a very thick part of the property, as well as the fact that there's not a high density of roads in that area. So he's in a tough area, but I have faith in him, and I think he's going to get lucky. So all we can do is hold thumbs and hope for the best, but he's done so well just to get this far in the tracking operation this morning, and at least he is hot on their heels. Far more mechanically and technically minded than myself, and he's been looking around and can't seem to pinpoint what the problem is, but it is also difficult out here. We don't have the required tools to do so. So once Brent is finished with the morning's drive, he will tow us back to camp, and we'll be able to tinker around and have a look around ourselves, headed up by VM, of course. I'll just be there passing him the tools he needs, and failing that, I'm not sure what the solution will be, but it'll get fixed in time, and everything happens for a reason. Maybe us being here, we may hear something that can therefore help Brent in finding this mating pair of leopards. We're not too far away from the area, but it is what it is. And interestingly enough, the squirrel is still in the same funny position. It hasn't moved. Brent, I had your audio driving out of the block, obviously, where you were waiting. Just on Cheetah Cut line. It cut out when I was driving and now won't start. It almost appears to be hanging by its back legs and basking almost like a solar panel, getting the morning rays. And I guess that makes sense. It's warming itself up before heading off for breakfast. And that's about all that I can update you from this vehicle. We're going to be stuck here, not going anywhere, so unless anything comes past, I think Brent's going to be conducting most of the rest of the drive, and what an exciting prospect it is, and let's hope you and Brent get lucky and find the leopards. But from myself and Vim on the breakdown vehicle, we'll see you a bit later. Well, Brent and Jason are, I think, off the vehicle looking for some tracks or any further sign of this leopard, so it'll just be a few moments before we head back to them. So in the meantime, we'll just keep an eye on the squirrel that's basking in the morning sunshine. Okay, well, Brent and Romeo are ready to continue the drive with yourselves, and I wish you the best of luck.
Hey, welcome back, guys. As you can see, unfortunately, Scott's in a compromised position. Don't worry, I'll fetch him after drive. Give him a lift home. Make sure he doesn't have to walk the whole way. So that last audio we heard, it sounds like they've been moving north in the block. So we're standing by on Mumba Road now, about halfway between Drakensberger and the Molwati, and about to play the patience game again and just listen. Just got a hunch. The last time we heard was probably 5 or 6 minutes ago. So I'm just going to check the edge of this drainage line very carefully quickly, and then when we get a bit closer to that 15-minute mark, I'm going to switch off and listen again. Okay, well, Romeo and I continue to search for these leopards. We're going to cross back to Scott and see what he's got there. So we will hopefully be back with some fornicating felines. I know I've said that before, and I'm just not delivering this morning.
Welcome back, and I've just taken a short walk to go and find any matters of interest that was in the surrounding area to try and give Brent some time to really focus on the task at hand. He really does need to concentrate and listen, and having an earpiece in and having to deal with presenting is not the ideal scenario for him to be in when he's really needs to focus on finding those leopard. Anyway, VM's going to zoom in here and show you the different things that I've found, and if we start from left to right, the two artifacts on the left I would like you to identify. So send your answers through to Nikki. What is that we are looking at? So that is the first question, and once a few answers have come through, I'll explain exactly what that is and what's interesting about those funny little specimens. Now, as VM now pans to the right, we're going to show you the next little artifacts, and again it's going to be another question as to which tree did this branch get broken off of. It's got very characteristic leaves, and the color of the leaves is also very characteristic of the tree in question. So send your questions through to Nikki at your answers through rather to questions@wildearth.tv, or you could hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Now you can stay on these ones, VM, because regardless of the tree species, I can tell you something quite interesting about what's been going on here. So if you look, you'll notice there's an abnormal growth coming out of the branch of this tree, and it's characteristic to this specific tree. You do get different growth similar to this on different trees, but this specific growth we will only find on this specific tree. So the insect that actually causes this growth specifically targets a specific tree. Now, the reason why I think the insect targets this tree is because it's got quite a soft bark and easy for the insect to penetrate. And what the insect will do is it'll essentially attack the plant by stinging it or biting into it, and this insect is called a gall midge. Now, a gall is a term referred to any kind of abnormal growth on a plant, so it's a gall midge. It's a midge that causes these galls on a specific tree, and you'll notice there's tiny little holes. Okay, now what would have happened is once the insect came in and irritated the plant, just like we send antibodies to fight infection, the plant will send growth hormones called gibberellins into an area that's under attack, and these growth hormones will continue to grow, and it creates these woody larders. Okay, now this woody larder, the insect, the gall midge, will then lay its eggs within the woody larder, and when they hatch, they'll have something to feed on. And they have hatched, so this is now a dormant midge, gall, and all of the little holes indicate where each individual baby gall midge has hatched inside there, fed on the woody matter, and then left to go and attack another plant. Now, what's important to realize is this specific insect is not harming the tree very much. If any parasite was to overwhelm whichever target species they target, it wouldn't be sustainable. So yes, it does have an impact on the plant, but not so detrimental that it causes the plant to die, because therefore it would mean that the insect would have no more homes for the future. So that is the gall midge. And now, interestingly, the same tree is attacked by another insect, and you'll notice the growth is very different, and that's obviously because this insect attacks the plant in a different way and therefore induces a slightly different kind of growth. This, you can see, it's the same thing would have happened. The insect would have attacked oval-shaped woody. The tree would have sent the growth hormones, creating this woody larder with it. And again, the same thing would have happened. The insect would have attacked the tree. The tree would have sent the growth hormones, creating this woody larder, within which its little egg will hatch and then have a woody larder of food to feed on before evacuating out of this little hole once it has matured. Now, I wonder if Nikki's got any answers. Thing would have happened. The insect would have attacked the tree. The tree would have sent the growth hormones, creating this woody larder, from within which it is little egg will hatch and then have a woody larder of food to feed on before evacuating out of this little hole. That's correct. You could give me those people. Well done, folks. To those of you who asked which, or to answer silver cluster leaf to this tree, you were correct. That's correct. You could give me those people. Identifying it. It is often a lot more difficult to identify a tree or plant from an. It's possible that you've never actually seen one of these in the flesh. So, well done to getting that answer correct. It's the silver cluster leaf that is targeted and parasitized by both gall midges and gall wasps. And Raisa. So, well done to all of you. So, now that we have covered the silver cluster leaf and its parasites, we can move across to the other interesting artifacts. And to those of you who got the marula fruit, well done. That is what we are looking at. We are looking at the nuts of a marula fruit. So typically there would be a layer of flesh around this nut, and the fruits fall from the marula tree in January this year. The elephants really loved feeding on them, and they literally go from tree to tree feeding on this fruit. They don't have a very good digestive system, elephants, so the fruit often comes out even with the fruity layer still on it. It's not digested to this degree where we can see no fruit remains on it, but obviously it's been broken down by other animals and small insects since this elephant defecated. Now, I know that this marula fruit has passed through an elephant's digestive system, because walking down the road I saw about 10 of them all right next to one another. Now, interestingly, there was no sign of any elephant droppings by this stage. That's all been carried off by possibly termites or ants. So all of that matter that has passed through the elephants, only partially digested, has been moved away, and it was just these nuts that were left. And because there were 10 in a close proximity, not close to a marula tree, we can be sure that it was an elephant that deposited them there on the road. And it's very useful, obviously, for the germination and seed dispersal, or more importantly, the seed dispersal of these marula fruits. They get carried far and wide in the elephant's stomachs and deposited in new locations where they can, if they're lucky, germinate and grow. A lot of them will not get that opportunity, and where the actual seed is that will hatch into a marula tree or grow into a marula tree is within these small cavities. Okay, now you'll notice the marula fruit on the left has not got two cavities, and if I turn it around, you'll notice it's still intact. So what would happen is, or what would have happened is, this marula fruit on the left would have been found by a tree squirrel, which we were just looking at earlier. Who knows, possibly even the same one we were looking at, it was very close by. And the squirrels have got perfect teeth designed to be able to open this woody cap, which is actually really difficult to do, even for us as humans. But what I can assure you is that the nut that is found within there is absolutely delicious. It's quite small though. I mean, this nut that we're looking at is half the size of a golf ball. So that gives you an idea of how small the little nut is within the seed. But the closest nut that I can relate to is a macadamia nut. It's got a very similar texture to a macadamia nut, and it's also very rich and oily, but a very tasty nut that the tree squirrels will harvest. So you often do find squirrels digging through old piles of elephant dung, hoping to find a marula seed jackpot. So this one could potentially, if we planted this one would grow, because it's still got the nut inside, which would germinate, whereas this one on the left has been caught short and become a meal for a tree squirrel. So just to give you an idea of the size of the nut, I'm going to pick it up and hold it up next to my face just so that you've got an idea of how big it is. And there we go. It's really small and also difficult to, because the seeds are quite long and thin within these small holes. It's not a nut that you can crack open easily without damaging the nuts or seed. So the best way to do it is to try and pry this little cap off with a knife, but often when doing so the knife slides into your finger. So I have nipped my finger a few times trying to access these delicious nuts, and it's not easy to harvest. If it was an easier nut to harvest, I'm fairly certain that they would be eaten across the world. But there are certain places, especially in this area, which is kind of the home of the marula tree, the low veld of South Africa, it's one of the best areas for them to grow. But you can buy them from some of the little local shops here, but it's on a very small scale and not commercial. Now, something else that's interesting about the fruit from this tree, and not so much the nut or seed inside, is that the fruity layer around this nut is harvested to make a delicious liqueur. Now, if you haven't tried a liqueur called Amarula, which I know is available internationally, do yourself a favor and go and get a bottle. It really is tasty, and I guess it's kind of similar to Bailey's, which is also a very well-known liqueur around the world. So there is a delicious liqueur made from this tree that we enjoy. The squirrels enjoy the seeds, the elephants enjoy the fruits, as well as a wide variety of other animals that also feed on the fruits. The fruit themselves, I guess I should tell you about, and the fruits in this specific season, they started to drop in January, and elephants would literally be running from tree to tree. It was really exciting to see. And on my last drive at the end of January, we were spoiled with an incredible sighting of elephants feeding all around us from marula tree to marula tree. And the fruit itself is very, very high in vitamin C, more so than that of an orange. And it's also tasty, but the taste does depend on the tree from which the fruit has fallen. No different to any fruit, I guess. You get some tasty oranges and some not so tasty oranges, and it's applicable for all fruits. But when you do find a good one, it's a very sweet and refreshing liquid that goes into your mouth. There's not much flesh or very little flesh that you can actually feed on and chew on, so you just basically perforate the skin and squeeze the hard seed into your mouth that's covered in a layer of kind of fibrous flesh that you just suck on and then spit the seed out. But it's really high in vitamin C, really tasty, and the local people will also use it to make a homebrew beer. So it's got a lot of wide uses, and that's all from one tree, the marula tree. It's an iconic tree of this area, and we so often see leopards sleeping in them. It's probably the leopard's favorite tree, so I guess it's a tree that was worth letting you know a little bit more about, and I hope you enjoyed our little chat about the different artifacts. Now, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go and look for some more artifacts, and what I'll do in the meantime is also try and open this other nut and get the seed out to show you. So that is what I'll do, but let's go back to Brent and get a little update from him, because I'm sure a lot of you are interested in finding out how things are going. But I've just got a message from Nicky saying he's off the vehicle snooping around on foot, but he is just coming back to the vehicle, so what a perfect time to get an update for him on what happened and how his little exploration was on foot. We'll catch up with you a little bit later.
These leopards are giving us a bit of a difficult time. So we're just waiting. Still confident we're going to find them. I think time-wise we are about 7 minutes off the 15-minute mark. But they've been constantly moving north. And us in case. Off anymore, which makes it a bit easier. They met and did nothing. In that case, if Karula was an estrus though, she might start. I have seen female leopards fight while both mating with the same male, but that is very unusual. But I think mostly that they would probably watch and try move away or avoid. But every situation is different, so you can never actually predict what's going to happen in those situations. You can speculate. Wind's picking up a little bit, which can make it a little bit more difficult to hear. But thankfully now there's another 2 vehicles in front of us, so between one of the 3 vehicles we should hear something. Aubrey, did you get that audio? Yeah, they've moved quite fast since the last audio into the block. They sound like Kashan into this block. So we heard them again, but they are moving north. I'm trying to think now what's going to be our best way to follow up, but it'll be quite difficult. So what I'm just going to, this is so hard. Let me just think for a bit. I'm going to hand over to Scott, see what other antics he can come up with, and then we will see you again just now.
Welcome back, and I have managed to pry open the little cap into this marula fruit, and I've left it in place just so you can see exactly how well it fits in there. And now I'm going to slowly just pop it out, or at least attempt to. I'll just use my finger. There we go. So now you can see the nut within and the small little cap that fits perfectly in there to keep that nut in place. And I've just got a thorn from an acacia tree now that I'm going to use to help me get this nut out. Now there's no easy way to do it, and it is so thin and narrow, but there you can see some of the flesh of this nut, and I'm going to try and fish a little bit more out so I can at least have a decent mouthful, but I don't have the correct tool for the job, and I've just improvised with this acacia. So I'm now going to plonk this into my mouth and let you know what it tastes like. So It really is just a tiny little taster. And with the right tool, you can get a bit more of this nut out, but it gives you an idea of how small it is and therefore why it is difficult to kind of commercially sell these and buy these. If they were bigger, they certainly would be on the market. But it really is delicious, and again, the closest nut that I can relate it to is a macadamia nut. And isn't that an interesting thought, to feed on a seed that you know has been picked up by a trunk of an elephant, popped into its mouth, gone through its digestive system, and then lay on a road for a few months before I've had the starter to my breakfast this morning. Now, something else interesting that we found, I've just got it wedged in by the steering wheel here, is the small nest of an insect. And the specific insect that made this nest is called the praying mantis, which is quite a well-known insect, and I'm sure a lot of you do immediately have a picture that springs to mind of what a praying mantis is. But if you don't, it's worth looking up. It's a really interesting insect, predatory insect that hunts down prey, and this is its nest. And insects who make nests like this, they are also termed as oothicas, is the more appropriate term, and it essentially feels like polystyrene. So it's a very polystyrene-like substance, and the female praying mantis would have laid this nest and in amongst this polystyrene-like foam that obviously hardens to turn into this. It comes out as softer, almost liquid foam, and then solidifies into this polystyrene-like substance. With it, and within this Oothica would have been multiple eggs, not just one, of the praying mantis larvae. And just interesting to know what these little foamy structures are that we find on a lot of the plants when we are walking about here. So interesting just to note the different ways that animals do nest and lay eggs. A lot of insects you'll find will lay their eggs on certain animals that they may have killed, and what would happen then is that once the insect hatches, kind of similar to the gore midge and gore wasp that I was speaking about earlier, that their parents will lay them in a situation where they know as soon as they hatch they're going to have something to feed on. And what a great way, obviously, to ensure the successful upbringing of your youngsters, especially if with insects a lot of the time the adults will not be present. So this is not the case with this specific plant. What you may find is that praying mantises may choose specific plants where they may know that there will be prey species for their young when they hatch. So maybe this specific plant attracts small insects that would allow their baby praying mantis to feed on. But you also get other insects that will catch and kill animals, like spiders, for example, lay their eggs inside them, and then again, once they hatch, the youngsters will have a larder of food to feed on to get them going in the right direction. Well, that's about that from me, and thankfully I got to the marula nut without cutting my finger. I took my time and made sure I didn't make a slip up, but maybe we can cut back to Brent and get another update on how he's doing over there. Okay, well, it appears that Brent is off the vehicle again, snooping around. So he still hasn't had any luck, but what I can assure you is that he's done a great job this morning, and that's because he's been one of the few vehicles that's actually intently stayed in that area, trying his best to find those animals. A lot of people came as soon as they heard there was a bit of action, and now we've moved off and left Brent all alone to try and do that, although I think another vehicle has come into the area to help him. So sadly he hasn't had much help, but at least he does have a good idea of where they are. And they will be mating hopefully for 3 to 5 days, and we presume they only started last night, judging from their behavior, it seemed and appeared like it was the early stages of mating as opposed to the latter, and there's a chance that they'll be around for 3 to 5 days, maybe not on our property, but at the moment they kind of are in the central position within Djuma, and great prospects for this afternoon. Hopefully they may have moved into an area that's easier to drive in, not as thick, and like I say, there are still very good prospects for this afternoon, even though this morning he hasn't had any luck. So anyway, he is ready to give you an update of what's been going on there for the last few minutes, and we will catch up with you a little bit later.
Welcome back. We've gone around in the drainage line, and we're going to come sit on Battalier Road, where their general direction is, would be my guess. But unfortunately this is one of the largest blocks on Djuma with no roads or anything in it. So we're just going to stand by. On a positive note, they are heading north rather than south. So they're literally heading into the center of our Travis area, which is good for us. Because if we don't have any luck this morning, there's a very, very high probability we're going to be able to find them this afternoon. So, as I've said before, a lot of tracking is guesswork, and my guess is they'll probably around opposite us in this sort of next 100 meters. So I'm going to find a spot where we can face the direction. Also, the wind is coming towards us here, which is good, which means that we're going to be able to hear them more clearly. It was on the other side, the wind was going away for us, so we weren't able to hear them as clearly. We're just going to stand by here. And if you zoom in on that tree directly in front of us, the one that's fallen down. In the meantime, I'll give you guys some homework while we sit and wait. Who can tell me which tree that is? Send your answers to questions at WildEarthTV, or just use the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. And then, let me just have a look. Is there one standing? Sort of, but that's a bit of an old one. I think it's easy enough from that. We're just going to stand here. We don't want to move in case those leopards make a noise. So the last one was about 10 minutes ago. So we are getting towards that time again. Aubrey coming. Orbs, I've done the Moati and I'm now probably 500 meters to the east of the junction, on Battalier from the junction with Moati, and I'm just standing by next to the road. Copy, thanks. We're just standing by on Battalier now, waiting for further audio, but they were literally, my guess is, in the middle between the two roads and between Drakensberger and the drainage. Copy. it, you catch a lot more of the sound. That's why things like kudus have got big ears and that also helps them to catch a lot of the sound. But this wind is making life incredibly difficult at the moment. But I think they're still very deep in this block. I'm not sure if we're going to have any luck with them this morning. Oh, did you have them again? Yeah. Hey, they fumbled today. Okay, so Aubrey's heard them. They've somehow got between the three of us waiting on this road. So we're going to follow Aubrey. Next come. Next, we just heard the man, it sounds very close. So we will, I think, extend for a little while just to see what happens. I know a little trick from, I've been down here when we were with Djuma, so a little shortcut to get to the other side. And I actually came through here with Brian. You can actually still see our tracks. You watch the aerial there. Here we go. So, a sneaky maneuver, but so this is the same drainage line we're crossing now, where sandy, where we found Djuma on a bushbuck kill. Whoa. It's got a bit sandier than the last time I was here. I think we're going to need a bit of a run up. Oh. Okay, third time's the charm. Or not. Just try a different angle. At least they're moving into slightly more open areas. Sorry about the speeding, guys. We're just trying to get into this area as quick as possible. Keep a close look out. Romeo. Aubrey coming? Aubrey, where would you have guessed those Ingwe were? So firm, but how? Copy, thank you. We're going to stay a little bit longer. Don't like giving up. So, watching us. For those who are going to stay, we're going to stay probably till we hear the next vocalization. And if we don't find them from then, I think we'll try again this afternoon. Fetch Scott and try get Jagger sorted out for this afternoon. So we're gonna have to move. I will keep listening to the radio, but we're definitely gonna come look for them this afternoon. So from Romeo and myself and Nix and Scott and Vim, we wish you all a really happy Easter, and hopefully when we get back this afternoon, we'll have a little bit more luck than we did this morning. So until the next drive, we look forward to seeing you then. Bye.